Hi and welcome to this video where I'll be discussing the meaning of Jupiter in astrology. Just a brief sort of overview about some of the ways that Jupiter can express itself in particularly in aspects, transits, and the sign that it's in. So Jupiter is essentially a sign of expansion, which can take the form of, we tend to associate Jupiter with sort of luck and good fortune and sort of sudden lucky breaks, which actually is an element of Jupiter. So it can express itself in that way, but don't expect miracles with Jupiter, because the other side of that is that it can sort of go overboard or sort of expand like an area of life so much that it can bring essentially chaos, I guess, or sort of you can go overboard with something. But essentially it is the planet of like expansion, like optimistic expansion, and also belief and philosophy. Whatever Jupiter is doing in your chart can give sort of an indication of what you believe in or how you express your beliefs, what drives you when it comes to like higher beliefs and philosophy and things like that. So, for example, the house that you have Jupiter in, you can have good fortune in that house, in that area of life, or you can sort of make that area of life as part of your sort of philosophy. It can kind of help you expand in that area. You can. It's not always super lucky, but that is an element of it as well. So it's just about expansion and sort of can be about hope, but also belief and philosophy. I hope that makes sense. So it can be tempered by Saturn if you think about it. So Jupiter wants to expand. Saturn is about necessary limits and restrictions, which can seem harsh or tough, but actually can be very beneficial for like the grand scheme of things, which I think is important to know. In transits, Jupiter can, again, like in the houses, it can expand an area of your life. So if you have Jupiter traveling through a particular house, some kind of changes might take place in terms of like a lucky change, a lucky break, or you're just kind of naturally growing in that area, or something comes along in that area for you. But again, it's not always super positive, so it's not good to get carried away with thinking about like, oh, I'm going to get a lucky break. For sure, when Jupiter is doing something in transit. So, but it's going to sort of it's something will come along in that area, I think. So, in terms of signs, Jupiter represents sort of how people born in that year or thereabouts, because Jupiter tends to stay in one sign for about a year. So it's sort of like how that person deals with their beliefs and how they express their beliefs, and also what makes them feel like they're kind of growing and expanding. So I'm going to give a few examples, because I've noticed, for example, that people with Jupiter in Pisces, for example, they tend to be spiritually in tune. They tend to grow in a way that is sort of spiritual. Like they have like a higher mind when it comes to certain elements of life, and they kind of grow through that. They expand in a way that is spiritual. And Jupiter in Gemini, for example, is a position that I think those people, they're interested in expanding with, like, through the mind, through their intellect. They're people who tend to believe in sort of reading or studying to become expanded, to know more about something. They really believe in that, like education or just reading and studying, and it kind of makes them grow in like an intellectual way. They're interested in growing in an intellectual way. And then my final point would be that, you know, Jupiter in Leo, just because I have Jupiter in Leo, so I kind of know about that on a first-hand level. So Jupiter in Leo, for example, will feel like they're growing and expanding if they're sort of putting their own unique self-expression out there into the world. And that's kind of the thing, one of the things that can make that person feel like they're growing or expanding in some way. But because Jupiter also has to do with sort of going overboard and excess, like expanding so much to the point of excess, it can also mean that in certain cases, putting yourself out there in terms of creativity, which is like Leo, expressing your unique self in creative ways, it can be beneficial, but it can also sort of, you can go kind of overboard with it to the point of excess. So you may need to kind of be tempered a little bit by something like Saturn energy, so that you're not just going all over the place with these Leo vibes, like putting yourself out there in terms of your creative expression in a way that you are running, and you kind of don't stop. You don't stop to look back or to sort of, it's easy to get carried away with Jupiter, but just the positive side of Jupiter in Leo would be that, you know, you feel that you're kind of expanding in a personal way when you're sort of allowing yourself to put your creative expression out there. So because Leo has to do with creative expression, and it can be like that in any sign. So the energies of the sign are sort of blending with Jupiter is acting in a way of that sign. So I just wanted to bring those 3 sign examples into this video because I specifically think about those positions a little bit more. But, you know, whatever sign you have Jupiter in, it's kind of like how you expand and grow in terms of like what expands your mind, or in a higher way, or what expands your perception, how your perception is expanded. I hope this made sense, and thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.